Hi, everybody. Today I'm sitting down with Gaurav Holay, a writer, facilitator, and the mind behind Men's Circle. He creates spaces where men can be real, raw, and honest without all the performance. His work lives at the intersection of healing, masculinity, and everyday truth. I've been looking forward to this one, and thank you for joining me today, Gaurav. So we're just going to dive right in. And thank you so much for taking this time and being willing to actually go into deep areas. And first, I'll start with South Asian culture, which both of us are a part of. So, what is one thing that you remember from your childhood that, like, maybe it could be a rule from our culture that lives rent free in your psyche, even though you know it's outdated?
Available for the emotional. So
Mm,
even meant for the women, that's one thing I think that's why I've never felt. I think I've always searched for a father figure or a mentor outside because of that. Because once a man connects to his son at an emotional and intellectual level, it feels safer for the son to also adapt and to learn and to take him seriously. But if the father is just trying to teach something without the emotional connect, son's not going to sit there because there are a bunch of teachers doing that in school and they're failing at it
mm,
because they have no emotional connect with children. So my some of my greatest teachers have been teachers who made an emotional connection. And I don't know how the subject just made it became easier for me to learn, even if it was like physics or maths. If they made an emotional connect with me, I just enjoyed learning and I just did it that way. Otherwise, I didn't have any motive or incentive. I generally was not that inclined towards education. So, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. The emotional connect, I think a lot of South Asian people think that emotional connect, if you make them, you will lose grip over your child. Or, if you relate to their soft parts, they might be able to take advantage, whatever it is, whatever reasons they may have. But this is very common, I've seen. Uh, so my mom, I think, saved me in that aspect that there was someone to connect as well. She had her lows, all we all had our lows, but yeah, it's good to have at least one pair connect emotion.
that's so, so important. And I think men, especially in our culture and even worldwide, they're not really taught that emotional, I don't want to call it emotional maturity, but just emotional connection. And women, although we are wired to be more emotional, it's the same issue. We're taught to not suppress, but maybe it's like an overexpression, which does help rather than to suppress it. But we don't like once we have somebody who really understands us or wants to understand us, that's when we start feeling that level of trust and connection. And that does become like a motivating factor. So I can definitely relate to that too. And it seems like a lot of men, whether they be like fathers or just boys and men in general, if their fathers were not able to hold their pain, or if their mothers were too burdened to see their pain, they just grow up in this suppression almost.
And because they have no
Yeah.
context of what it means to have an emotional connection. So, when kids like these they go out into the world, they don't know what position to take when it comes to groups of people. So they naturally become people pleasers. So they really have no range of thoughts ki acha, this is how a close connection feels. This is how safety feels. They've never really felt safe within themselves. So for me, that was a very big exploration because I went around pleasing every group of people that I made friends with, and it took me a long time to realize what I'm doing and that it's actually toxic behavior. There's nothing positive about purely nice guy. He's up to something or he's hiding something or he's not processed something himself, not understood himself in those senses. Yeah. So they don't yeah.
I love how you express that because it is manipulation, right? Because being the nice guy, people pleaser, and that can go to women as well, being the nice girl or just completely being a good girl and people pleasing. Subconsciously, it is manipulation because we are doing it for a certain reaction or like validation. And maybe it's not outright malicious, but it is a form of masking yourself because it's the fear of being seen. Maybe you were never seen. And that's the case with so many people. And I think that so many of us are also waiting to be rescued by that parent figure, whether that be a mother figure or a father figure, that we maybe, even if we did grow up with such figures, they didn't have the tools and the coping mechanisms to pass that on. So we could really be like 40, 50-year-old men and women that are still looking for that mother figure and father figure. Yeah. What emotional needs were unmet in your childhood, but were kind of like normalized as well, that you didn't even realize that you were deprived?
I think that the main thing was connection with a male figure, an older male figure. That was, even later I realized in my life that that was the only missing link. But I still don't blame my late father. He was working very hard. He was building a dream that he had, and he had convinced us of his dream. But the dream included all of us. So it was still good. So I appreciate his sort of conquest nature that he had, but he took all of us along with the ride. And apart from work, he was just a family man. He used to take us out every weekend. So there were all the like 8 out of 10 things were good, but two were very horrible. One was that he was really stressed, and the stress was so multi-layered. It's not a simple word because that stress comes with so many reasons, right? There might be stress out of anxiety, out of overexhaustion, out of being bullied at the workplace, which nobody talks about. Corporate environments are fucking toxic to the core. Like I've been with some, anyways. I haven't experienced it much because I don't want to go down that path of working in a corporate space where there are too many
Mm-hmm.
people. It just ends up being bad because they are all just chasing the next position. So it's just a very weird zoo to be in. And he was there all the time. And he, being a farmer's child, his dad was a merchant and the entire family was a farmer. There were 11 siblings. He was the youngest one. And so he had all these challenges, a little bit of broken English. So when I thought about it more and more, I unpacked that, he might have been bullied himself and he was hurt in many small ways, big ways, during conversations, spoken behind back. All of these things would have happened for sure because he was ruthless when it came to his work. He was very particular. He was always on it. So obviously people would hate that. And then would his weakest points were the loudest. Like he couldn't speak well. He was darker skinned. He was a bit shorter. So he had all the reasons to hate the world, but he ended up bringing it back home. And I understand that now. Now that now that I am working, now that I know what the world, little bit of what it works like, I get it now. But yeah, at the time it was unnecessarily painful, but also like even in our previous conversation just of the podcast, I mentioned I'm grateful for my trauma because it could be possible that someone like me could have become a criminal, and it could be possible that someone like me could learn a way to heal themselves. So I got very lucky that I found ways to heal myself, and that's about it. I think that's the luck part of it. But someone like me could have gone down a very bad path. I used to steal a lot of stuff as a child. I was a vandal. I was vandalizing public property, stealing, also being aloof, cycling on my own. So all of these things were very normal in my life. Yeah. That came from
Wow.
the life.
And do you think that having that connection would have been more fulfilling as a child? And were you quite, because I think it's hard for also kids to express that. I'm looking for this kind of connection. We're not really taught that emotional language, and it's seen as weakness.
No, the kid doesn't even know that that's the missing link. The kid just
Mm-hmm.
assumes that's life. I mean, at that point, I had no idea that this is what I'm missing. I was just like, bro, this man is coming home and he's very angry. Usually, I better be out when he's coming home, and then I'll come back 1 hour later. So I used to go cycling.
Mm-hmm.
Life didn't stop for me. I was still living my best possible life. I still remember enjoying every day. Like I used to make time for myself. My mother raised me well in that emotional sense. And my father really gave us love. On the weekends, we experienced what it is, like what things are, like going to a mall, shopping, watching a movie. So he took us out. He spent time with us. It's just that on the weekdays he was stressed, and that's with most, like a lot of men who work in corporate. They might have shitty bosses, shitty colleagues, stupid juniors who
Yeah.
might not understand what to do. There's no patience with people in the corporates. Everyone is pressurizing each other, and this is I keep saying corporate because I think it's a very good side effect, a good notable example that's a side effect of corporates. This is what happens in families whose fathers are enslaved by this rat race and they don't see any other future. They can't see any other possibility. They're in too deep. They've taken mortgages. Now they're fucked. Like they can't move around. You can't
Yeah,
stop
you're
them.
stuck.
Credit cards and mortgages have ruined a lot of lives as well. It has enabled people who are smart. My dad created his home for us out of those mortgages. But yeah, I think just South Asian men should just relax, find a better way to make money as well, and not rely just on the corporate scene and all of that. But I think all that's changing very fast. My dad just had to take his route. He enabled us. He enabled me to talk all this big shit at this age because he gave us that much, I don't know, materialistic range to spread our wings in that sense. Good education, all of that comes with money, which came from the stress, which came from the work. Now, was there another way to do it? I'm sure there were 100 ways, but that wouldn't have worked for his life. That wouldn't have worked for our life. So yeah, I think I digressed a little bit, but almost there.
That's really, really illuminating actually, because our culture does really emphasize on education, working, getting to the next level. It's very achievement based. And I think especially for men, that must just come with a lot of pressure and thinking that you're only valuable if you reach this next level.
And that's what they're feeding their heads. The worst and the best thing for men is their brotherhoods. Now, their brotherhoods are severely the same with women. Okay, I'm talking about men being a man. Applies all to women. If your group of friends has three bitches in it and you're like six good people, you are going to get corrupted. The same way happens with men. There are two, three men who are powerful, who have more stature, who are pure assholes, and these infect the other men, and this becomes their way of life. Like the way they see women, the way they talk about the future being not so great. You can spread negativity, positivity, you can spread freedom, you can spread all of these things. What I've noticed is after I sort of moved away from the corporate life, my corporate friends also started moving away from me because they could no longer relate to my energy. They were like, "How can you be so calm? They are running every day. They always feel like their life could end in the next month." Correct, life could end, but I'm not worried about my life ending. But you are worried about your life ending. So, anyways, I just feel like it just matters a lot who you associate with, what they speak about, what is the nature of their conversation, how they view women. That's one of the most disgusting things I've found about being a man is listening to other men talk about women. That is by far the only thing, not the only, maybe one of the most important things that makes me ashamed of, has made me ashamed of being a man. And I feel like me starting to raise my voice about that also took me some time because these people are like your friends, your close family the male members of your family were close to you. So, but yeah, once I started talking about it, then they stopped sharing their views about women with me because they knew I would snap back or I would say something else. And that would really disturb them because they knew that I'm trying to tell them something that's correct. But at the same time, they knew that if they let their perspective go, they'll think they're just scared that if they let things go like that and if they try to understand, I don't know, they're just scared of vulnerability. Maybe they're scared of slipping.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then they question their entire reality.
Yeah, yeah, which is
Right, which is
uncomfortable.
also a slippery slope. And they're just, yeah, I wonder where that comes from, this perspective about women
Yeah.
that is so toxic. Is it rooted just in the patriarchy, or when did you first notice these
When
toxic
I
beliefs about
when I
women?
when I came of age, like when I was like 19, 20, no, so 22, 23, when I started asking my dad about marriage, about women, about his perspective on things. I knew my mom's perspective on things because me and my mom always spoke very deeply at length about everything. So when I became like 25, 26, I started speaking to my dad about I did not like what he had to say. And I told him, I'm glad this is the first and the last time I've asked you. I'm not going to ask you ever again about this topic. And he's fine with it. He knows that we both have always sort of been disappointed with each other. So the conversations were fairly easy that way towards the last 10 years of his life. But also towards the last 5 years, we had a lot of closure with each other. We were able to sit together and laugh, which felt very rare. Just like I think 3 nights before he passed, we were having a few beers. We were talking, gossiping about mother. She was not there at home at that time, and it was good. Like, I wish it would more such things would have happened earlier. But that comes with a certain privilege. If you have a little bit generational wealth, you naturally have a little bit more space to give to your child. You can't, like, the people I know who had good father figures were mostly either people who took it easy in their life, didn't want to build a very big or comfortable life from nothing. Okay. The others were people who already had strong generational wealth and could just carry that forward. They have a lot of time to spend with their child. Still less, but still there. And yeah, other than that, it's very hard for someone who's a self-made man. You cannot imagine, and even for a self-made woman, like if the woman is leaving from uh, very very small beginnings and she's like she has to make it on her own, which has not happened much till today, till the last 10, 20 years. Now women are very independent and now they are able to take a stand for themselves and now they know it's possible. So obviously the requirement of the man being a provider is there. So we don't need each other anymore to provide for each other. It can come as a joint income situation where both can support and then create something big. That's great. We don't really need each other to provide for each other. Most men are learning how to cook. So like those domestic finances, responsibilities, those things don't matter anymore. Uh, so that's also why people are not being married. I am not
Mm.
interested in that concept. I've never been interested in the concept of marriage. But yeah, we do need companionship. That's something we take care of.
Yeah, I've also seen the other extreme where, like you said, that men and women don't necessarily need each other, but I've seen that there is still this level of need and greed that the men have toward women. So now that the women are working, it's just like, okay, great, earn, give me 50% of your income, and also cook the meals, clean, do the laundry. So it's just become even more responsibility, which is even more toxic.
Yeah. Personally, I think we're still in the transition phase. It's still a new transition for both the genders to adapt to. And for the world, there are no written rules about this. There are no existing do's and don'ts. So everyone's just learning. It's a very big transition for mankind. Even though it must have happened like 1,000 times before, I don't know. I'm just living this lifetime with you. So I'm seeing that the transition is happening and people have to learn their ways. Now, the way men adapt to this is one, they can become overly sensitive because now they are afforded that you can be the sensitive one, you can be the nurturing one, while the woman is the go-getter and she has a very strong system going where she's building her own empire in the commercial world. So that's also happening. Where there are two people who are completely secure about who they are, where they come from, where they want to go. They come together and form relationships. Then there is the arranged marriage business that's still at large in India. I think arranged marriage is a way to bypass a lot of these things.
Mm.
They are like still conduct marriages with little to very little asking to the woman because they are still conducted under the same patriarchal narrative. I think, at least in the northern parts of India. Southern parts of India, I've never worried about. I feel like they don't need anyone to worry about them. They got their things sorted. I love the
Really?
South.
How is that?
They're more open-minded, more mature. Like Sadhguru keeps saying, the North got invaded so many times, the South has been untouched. So the
Mm.
privilege of not being disturbed for thousands of years has given them the continuity of existence where the life hasn't been invaded by other people. People haven't tried imposing their culture on them. So that way, very lucky. So it's a good place to be. They just had good luck. And now when you go there, you still feel it. Things are very well
Mm.
organized. At least Tamil Nadu, I really, really like it because kind of roads and the way the system works. It's really nice.
That makes sense actually, because when you're colonized, divided, and conquered, your mindset also, it doesn't evolve to the level of, it's not necessarily maturity. It's just whatever the invaders had in mind. And that's
And they
usually
destroy
something that is,
they destroy buildings,
yeah.
destroy libraries. There's so your culture is getting wiped out. So who's gonna remember? Like their children won't see anything, won't remember anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think humans are that fascinates me. How much changes lands go through. So many people come.
Yeah, that's so true. And just following off of that, I know that you do a lot of work when it comes to facilitating men's retreats. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you formed your vision and where you see it going?
So men's circle, I started out of this need because I realized that in general people are finding it harder to make friends. Social circles are dwindling, and the norm have, at least with my age people, I'm 92. It's been like usually people have only been meeting for alcohol, or just getting drunk at a place and talking. And then it's the same thing, just meeting at different places to consume different things. So just seeing that lifestyle and
It's a
seeing
form
the
of escapism.
yeah. And then it's fine. Like I have nothing against escapism. It's just that make it interesting, right? Just make it a bit more fun. Like why can't you do more? Fine, if you want to drink, you can drink, but why not do more with that state of mind? Experience a different conversation with someone different in a completely different place. So the thing with men's circle is it's not like we condone the use of anything. It's just that we keep it very legal and safe. But if someone wants to have a smoke or a drink, that's up to them towards the end of the night. So my vision was never to create this detox kind vibe of retreats, because if you wanted to detox, you can do it at home. You don't need 3 days to do it. And those 3 days are not going to change your life. Like you come here for 3 days, you pretend like you're clean, then you go back and then you do all the bullshit that you've been doing all along. So I didn't want to get into that vibe. I just want to create a space where men can come together. And the reason just for men is because after a point, especially say if a man is married, man is working, he'll end up meeting only the same people, the same kind of people. Start with his family, start with his colleagues, people he meets on the way to work or back from work, people in the area. And that becomes stagnating very soon. Like within a year or 2 years of following your routine, your brain will be, in most cases, very well adapted. Like it can predict how everyone's going to behave. And that's a dangerous way to live, I think, because people find comfort in that repetition. People find comfort in that consistency of being like able to predict what's going to happen around them at all times. I find that absolutely dangerous because, like, it's destruction of everything creative that lives within people. People have just thought, yeah, this is all that we're going to do. We're going to work, come back home, spend some time with family, which my dad did as well. Um, I don't see any joy in that, and those are the reasons we started this circle. And we just believe that when there is no women around, there's the men just focused of men. They can be more of themselves without having to worry about how they'll be judged. Men act differently when there are women around, and when there are no women around, they act a bit differently. And the reason I felt confident to sort of, even if they go towards the extreme animalistic side, I'll be able to manage whatever's going on. So that confidence is why I started Men's Circle, is because I've worked with so many men who are my friends also, who come and gone out of my life. I've worked with myself. I've been my own healer. I'm my own therapist. I'm my own shaman. So I naturally feel a bit more confident that jo bhi hoga dekha jayega. There has been one or two incidents in the past where I was like, I cannot handle what this person is going through due to some other reason, which we can or cannot discuss later. But those things have made me more aware about emotional states that men are in. I've been just more aware of micro expressions, reading their body language, reading things, listening to what they are saying deeply, and trying to understand if there is something else that they are trying to say or not trying to say. But yeah, and it might sound like a lot of checkpoints, but if you're just present with people, it's very easy to see what they are about. And that's why the retreat space felt like something I can.
That's so needed. And I love when you said presence, because presence, it's what's missing. Men get together all the time,
Yes.
to have beer and watch the game and or just even for like hanging out. But that lacks the same depth that the men's retreat holds, right?
So, like, I'm going to be very honest with you. The retreat was designed for transformation in many ways. It was designed for heart, body, mind alignment. And the programs were designed that way. The facilitators are specialized, certified specialists for those programs. But yeah, like, I just feel like I want something that's a bit more energetic in nature rather than more mental. I just realized there's a different direction that I can take with this. I'm just talking about my personal journey. I'm sure people need programs like these. People need modalities like NLP, hypnosis, breathwork. Breathing is super important. Breathwork is a very core principle. There's nothing you can take up from it. NLP hypnosis, I'm not so sure about. I just find that we are way more advanced than it felt like a teleprompter. You're fixing your teleprompter. You're fixing the teleprompter of your mind. Then you can all this subconscious rewiring. You can say all that, but it still feels very much on the surface. I don't see that it's a deeper work of transformation. I realize that deeper transformation is going to happen in your own space. You're not going to come to some place that's going to change your life. Unless you drop a copious amount of substances, then you'll never be the same again. But if you do all these things for 4 5 days, your life is never going to change. You will experience a bliss that you may have never experienced before. You may experience ease in living. But when you come back home, it's the same place, it's the same life, it's all the same. So I think I call bullshit on transformative retreats, and that's the position that I am in right now. I think it's very important for brotherhoods to be formed. The core still remains true. It's very important for a community to be formed, and those are the bare necessities. We just like we build these things that advertise a certain element or certain lifestyle, but at the core of it, people are just lonely, right? They just want to meet each other. So
Mm-hmm.
just give them a space where they can come spend time with each other, get to know, and do more human things. Like I don't know, like just plant 100 trees. On day one, you just plant 100 trees. That's the first day, and then those in the planting, you can there'll be music going on, there'll be food going around, but just plant 100 trees. So basic stuff like that is, I think, where my mind is going. That it should be energetic. It should be just like life. It should embrace life in all its senses. So, but yeah, it's a learning. I'm sure it will evolve if it has to.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, especially men need a lot more places like this. There's the outlet of sports and, like I mentioned, just regular friendships. But what's the difference between this kind of brotherhood that you envision versus just hanging out with friends and having beer and watching a game?
I think it's just the sheer difference in the quality of people that you come across. Because no matter how much you want to meet different new people, in your day to day life, suppose on the weekend you have some time, you will go for, say, a workshop, okay, a painting workshop or a pottery workshop, a wine tasting workshop, food making, cooking, eating, whatever workshop. If you go, you'll meet some people. You'll have a great workshop. You'll experience that. You may or may not exchange numbers with those people, but chances are it could happen over time. But when you go for a retreat, you spend 3 nights or 4 nights with those same people. You watch yourself peel off layers slowly, slowly, and you know that this person saw me on day one acting like this, and on day three, I'm telling him about the time I embarrassed myself in front of the whole school. So you see those layers peeling, and uh, that's greater than any therapy, where naturally you open up to people, you're finding things out about each other over this. So that I find very magical. The retreat that initiated me into retreats is this place called VHX, and I still talk about them with people. And their retreat was focused around this just networking, community, and meeting people. And I was very hell bent to make something completely different. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna make that. Like, let them do that. I'm gonna make a transformational. Then now I'm like, okay, they had it right. They've done it 100 times. That's why they know what works. And that's really all people need. They just need like a very conscious, healthy, good amount of fun break from their ordinary life. meeting people that they could have never met in their life. Like, in the retreats I've gone, I've met this guy who paints blocks of wood. He burns them. That's his whole life now. He just burns wood, teaches people how to burn wood. Where
Wow.
will you meet this guy? Like, you go to a market, you see his stall, you'll talk to him. But you won't get to know him over 5 days. What motivates a mind like that? A guy who travels for like 4,000 kilometers everywhere. What's running behind your head? And that immediately you reevaluate your life and you feel so relieved that you thought you had it all figured out, and you watch all these people who've not figured out a lot of things or have figured out a lot of things. So retreats are important in general. Community, that whole village vana feeling that we need a village to grow with is very important. Like, village has passers by, travelers who go.
Yes.
So in those concepts, it's really important. That's why I really.
Yeah. And I understand what you said about it doesn't necessarily have to be transformational,
Yeah.
but I think that it's already creating that transformation. And yes, it is unrealistic to state in 3 days you're going to be a totally different person. I think that's complete bullshit in anything. That's just a very broad claim. But I'm sure that when men have that space to be held, to be seen, and you're all in the same, even if you're not from the same walks of life, you're in the same emotional place where you are seeking a divine and authentic connection. And it's hard, I'm sure, to be a man because you can't just go up to your friends or to your like relatives and say, I want emotional connection. That's why it's so important to have these kind of spaces, whether they be retreats or even satsangs, like whatever they are, to just have it just for the men and holding space for each other. Because a lot of the times these men were probably shamed when they cried, told to not cry, and just never really seen for who they are or felt ashamed to let their true selves shine through. I'm sure a lot of them don't even know who they are, and exploring each other in I don't want to say in a controlled environment, but in a safe space makes all the difference, right?
Absolutely. And but
Yeah,
it
that's
takes a certain kind of man to even know that he needs it. That's a whole another topic, because what kind of man realizes that, oh, I need to meet more people? Do you realize how much surrender he has to do in his own self to feel like shit? I actually am lonely. I need to meet more people. How much surrender that takes for a man to admit to himself or to whoever's around him. Like, we had one gentleman come to the retreat whose wife sent him, and my first reaction to meeting him was like, such a good man, he actually listened to his wife. Because she knew what was good for him. She knew that this guy he's a great, lovely, he has a big heart. He's very good. He just needs to meet more men. He's so caught up with these IT bros all the time, and then coming home, and then they have a whole life
mm-hmm.
going on, they have children and everything. But he just needs to meet interesting people because he's an interesting guy. He has the capacity to keep an open mind. He just needs the right influences. So my first reaction to him was like, very good, you listen to your wife at least. And I was like, fuck, I've never heard myself say that about anyone. Like, that marked to me also my healing, because I was like, that's such a new thing for me to say to anyone. That good, you listen to your wife. Fucking uncle or something. So whatever, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you just need to meet people.
Yes, and it's all about the company that you keep, right? So
Yeah,
that person who was painting blocks,
yeah.
you may have never met him, and yet he possesses so much depth and character. And just being around people like that can bring about transformation. So even though you're saying that a retreat can't facilitate such a quick transformation, maybe it can, especially if they're going there for that reason and they continue consistently with what they were taught in these spaces.
And also how receptive they are. So, like, transformation can happen in those 3 days, but depends on how receptive they are in general. Now, there are all different kinds of people that come with different levels of openness at these events. Some are approaching it from an angle ki chalo, everyone else has done it, let me also try it. I saw good reviews about it, let me just go and try it. Some people like me who attended the first retreat were just a little bit desperate to break out of the shell that had been created around me. I created a safe shell. I had a good, safe job. I had a good team. Everything was going good. And as soon as it was going good, I was like, I am in trouble. Something needs to change. Anytime anything goes stable, I get uneasy, and I just feel like now it's time to break stability again. And then because I know that I've not arrived at any point, I'm constantly feeling like I'm in the right moment. But just in life, when things start to look very familiar, very comfortable, that's generally where I try to make myself worried about that, if that makes any sense.
It does. Do you think it's from your nervous system as a child not feeling regulated? So then
Yes,
you're looking for that anxiety
yes.
subconsciously.
And now I think it's a great thing because now accepting that for me was the best. So accepting that my muscle memory is for chaos. Accepting that my muscle memory is meant to handle very disturbing states of energy. Now this might sound crazy, and by all means it should sound crazy. But suppose I'm working on something, and there's a loud podcast, like something loud and chaotic going on in the background. I naturally have to put a bit more pressure on my brain to read what I'm actually reading or to process what I'm working on. So I have a choice of pausing that thing and then just focusing on this. But sometimes I find myself making my environment a bit chaotic. So I actually just realized this yesterday that I've been tinkering with the idea for a long time because I try to notice myself from an aerial view. I'm fortunate enough to have developed this aerial view of myself. So I keep going into that view. I'm hardly ever so engrossed in the moment that I don't realize what I'm doing. So I try to go in that aerial view, and yesterday I understood why I do that. So you must have heard of ice baths, ice plunges. People do ice
Yes, yes.
plunges. So that's like a stress test, right? You're putting your body through extreme stress to help it relax. So I realized that I'm putting my brain through extreme stress and then learning how to keep it calm in that stress. So naturally, my brain power increases, my ability to endure challenges and pressure increases, and it just makes my life a bit more exciting. That's, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, no, it does. It does. But when it comes to seeking chaos, it sounds like you've accepted that that's something that you will always crave and seek. So almost making friends with your demons, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. And also because I live a otherwise very mentally peaceful life. I work remotely. I live with my mom and my brother. I live a very good and stress-free life. So I create my own chaos so that I don't fall soft, because and that's not soft and weakness are not the same thing. And I'm not even talking about the same thing. It's just you lose practice, right? You lose practice of how to keep rolling, how to do things. That's why I subject myself to stress because my life is generally peaceful. I did not
Hmm.
did not marry, or I did not do any of those classic things. So I didn't put myself in any pressure. And it's not like I didn't try. I tried to go down the marriage path. I was on matrimonial websites. But when I really got into it, I realized, no, I can't do this. I think. So
That's
yeah, I
so
guess,
important that you didn't force yourself into a path because a lot of people, especially in our culture,
yeah, they forced me.
it's a checklist, right? So it's just first education, passing stuff, certain job, getting married, having kids, going on whatever vacations. And most of us live lives like this. So it sounds like this has always been who you were, is to question that status quo. And is that a theme also in the men's retreats as well? To question everything that you've been conditioned to believe?
I think that's a theme with the facilitators themselves that they are trying to change. So if we are introducing NLP hypnosis, so the core of principle is that we are telling you that you can change your mindset and you can change your life, you can change your mindset, change the narrative that's happening in your head, change the way it sounds, change like take the same words that you hear from the world or about yourself, or that you hear from yourself about yourself, change the tone, the context, how it sounds, and with that way try to reach a place where you are confident about your ability. If that is one of your issues. So that's NLP process. I still found it very. I was was like, okay, there are better ways. This works, but I think there are better ways.
Yeah. What advice would you have to toward boys growing up today that are going to also be taught the same things about achievement, success? How can they learn to be authentic at an earlier age?
So, uh, like I observe my younger brother, who's 11 years younger. He seems very authentic. So that's one of my biggest examples that I have. But he's in the chase for the corporate race. He started with there and he looks like he wants to go ahead with that. And I respect that about him, that at least he has that clarity to take those steps. Because motion is really the only thing. So any and all advice I would give younger people or even my younger, I know I would give myself that advice because I was already doing it. But the best advice is keep moving. Motion should be your god. You should like move, just move. If it's physical motion, emotional motion, regulating, releasing, if it's knowledge, moving knowledge from outside to inside, inside to outside. You not only need to learn, you also need to teach. Because when you start teaching, is when you realize that you fucking didn't understand jack shit about this concept. Is only when you try to teach it to someone. But if you never talk to anyone, if you never try to express what's going on in your mind, you will assume that you are smart, you will assume you know everything. But get out into the world, try to explain your knowledge to people to see how strong your knowledge is and to improve it. Yeah, just move a lot and never
Hmm.
assume that you know
What
everything.
about stillness, though? Because although movement definitely has its benefits in releasing and in that somatic movement release and all of that, I think that a lot of us are trained to move, whether that be career wise, getting married, having children. It's always a movement and it's always the next step. What about just being?
So I have a story for this that I heard from someone who told me. But, the story is that there was a young disciple who came to meet a yogi, a teacher somewhere. And the young disciple was telling the teacher that I can't seem to sit still. Uh, every time my head is racing, I don't ever seem to arrive at any given point. Can you teach me how to meditate? So the yogi told him, you see that field there? Run around it 40 times. So he started running 20, 30, 35, started to get really exhausted, then he just fell down. And the yogi went over and told him, now sit up and just sit. Don't do anything. Sit. That's it. You learn how to meditate by overexerting himself to the point where he fell down, by indulging himself in his true nature to the point of finding that he is not his true nature. So that's that story I heard recently, but that's the way I meditate as well. I can't just sit down still and meditate. Like I feel like I'm forcing myself to be still. It's like giving myself ADHD medications, which I think is an abomination of humanity. You are making your brain dumber to fit into something that is not designed for your growth or for harmony or for prosperity. It's designed only for the businessman's prosperity or the system's prosperity. So the system can control you properly. But that's what I feel. When you tell a hyperactive kid to shut up and sit down, you are already lost the battle. You haven't understood what this is. You haven't understood the nature of this kid. He loves to run. He loves to like run around. He needs to run around. You
I
create a
was such hyperactive kid myself,
yeah, yeah. But you
and
have been told
the
to shut up.
ADHD, whatever. Yeah. And then just being taught to conform because it's convenient for society. And like you mentioned, such a great point that it becomes easier to control us when we fit into a certain mold.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just, like that quote, if you judge a fish by its ability to fly, right? You can't. And yeah, and I have a son, he's a toddler now, and I want him to, I mean, I have no control ultimately, but I want him to know that feeling is important, not just being and achieving. And I think that our society and our culture puts so much importance on jobs and career. And I understand it from the security mindset of, okay, well, then you're going to have money and then you're going to have a place to live. Ultimately, it's survival. But why raise the future to only survive? Why not thrive? Like maybe their lives won't look materially wealthy, or maybe like a parent's ego is not going to be satisfied because their son isn't a doctor, or they didn't match whatever expectations that they had. But that's the problem with society, isn't it? Because when one has a child, they automatically think that they own the child. And I've been doing a lot of work myself, whether that be conscious coaching through Dr. Shefali's Institute, and just really a lot of self-reflection is, how do I not perpetuate the toxic shit that have been passed down to boys who will then become men?
Don't try to teach him anything. Is like the only thing, only sane advice that I can think of. Having no kids of my own, okay? Like you might just disregard what I'm saying, but don't try to teach him anything. Just let him explore, but nudge him in the right directions. Like if he's sitting on a screen for like more than an hour, then you have to smash the screen away, take him out of the house, do something like that. Like create the environment for him, but maybe don't try to teach him anything, because if you have truly understood how nature works, then he's definitely closer to purity way more than we can ever be, right? So
Yes.
we just don't disturb that purity. Create an environment that facilitates his exploration without imposing your worldview on him, which is the most critical thing. Is just because you think you know something, or that you've read something from somewhere, or someone coached you for something, doesn't make it automatically correct for him to learn that from you, or if he's even in a position to learn that. I think most learning happens through experience. I have never been one to listen to my parents, so I can't advise on that. But like some things they said were true. But it's just that I didn't want to take advice from someone who I was not emotional, like I told you before. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so I don't think it works to teach children anything. Like it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because they most learning they do is from observing. They observe how you do things, and then it's not like they want to copy you, but they are learning the most from observing how you are doing things, then making their own judgments about like this is how she does it. I don't know if she knows this, or I don't know if she knows this, or maybe she does this because of this. Whatever his judgments are, but you're not explaining yourself to him, or you're living your life, creating an environment for him, uh, maybe answering his questions with honesty, or I don't know. That's one thing I don't know about. Like, how do you answer the questions children have? The children have like deep ass questions, I'm sure, where like you have to suddenly understand where his level of understanding is. But in general, I don't think we should take ourselves that seriously. हमको सिखाना है उनको, तो बहुत आता है, और knows a lot more, because it's closer to the source, right? Just
Yes.
uncontaminated with the
Yes.
world's bullshit. So why should we teach him anything?
And that's the trap that so many parents fall into, where who do we think we are to give such advice?
Yeah,
And yes, there are certain things where if they come to us with advice, or certain responsibilities that we do have to fulfill, but ultimately it becomes just like you're trying to build a mini version of you, or
yeah,
a robot,
yeah.
or just whatever. And then it becomes a contaminated child. And then that child is not really seen for who he or she is. They're seen for their grades, behavior, talents, but they're never seen for their soul, which is what's missing, I think.
I think if they are not being seen for their soul, is because the parents themselves haven't seen their own souls. The parents themselves have never been liberated from their identity, from the burden of the past, burden of the memories, burden of the fear. My father had this one issue. Whenever I used to blow a balloon, as soon as it reached him, he used to start shouting like a madman. And I used to mess around with him a lot because I knew he would get triggered. But slowly, I realized that he's overreacting. Like, it's a lot of overreaction, that he's so sure the balloon is going to blow up, and that I won't stop blowing it at the right time. That I am not conscious enough to know when it's going to blow up. I know when the fucking balloon is going to blow up. I've blown up balloons before. But he doesn't know that, right? He thinks it's his responsibility to educate me on fear. It's like, Tirko, you don't know how big bad the world is. I need to tell you how big bad the world is. What if the world I encounter is not big and bad? And that's the reality that I'm living in today. I don't have to do all the same bullshit to make a living, to make a comfortable living, because I've just had faith that I can maybe get things aligned with the way I really am, understanding that, working on that, and then finding the opportunities, recognizing those opportunities. So all that happens, but I never believe the world is so big and bad. Oh my God, I have to stay stuck in some place, or I have to do things their way. Maybe you don't. Try your luck. Like most people don't try their luck.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just very comfortable. Like I have failed many times in my life, and that has helped me a lot. Even as a very chubby 110 kg child, I would always try to go and approach women who were girls who were like the popular, beautiful, pretty girls, and they used to be very nice to me in the sense कि saying no, nahi hoga ye, but they were still nice about it. But I was very hurt by whatever was happening, by rejection. But so I started my
Yes.
rejection therapy very early in life. That really worked out for me. I can't tell you how important it is to face rejection over and over and over again till your fear of rejection is gone. And like in Australia, when I went to my master's, my first job was cold calling people. I used to cold call 95 people a day. Out of those 95, maybe three people used to talk to me properly, respect, and something could happen. 10, 15 would be very rude, and five may abuse. So, like, there were these things. Rejection therapy, I've just articulated it as that word. I've never used that word. Rejection therapy is something that you can really use. Because the social media has made it so it's not real. Not rejection is not the rejection and validation. They're both very not real. They're numbers on a screen, so you don't get a feel
Yes.
for it. Like when you call someone, you break into their personal space, or when I used to go attend those conferences where I had to do a lot of face-to-face sales. So I was an Indian kid who's talking to these big $1 million businesses, Australian people. I just had to. That was my job profile that paid my rent, and I wore a suit. I just went into it, even though I hated every second of it. I remember I used to go to the washroom and sit in the washroom for half an hour at a time because I was like, at least I'm escaping whatever that is. And then I had to go out again and talk to these people, put a smile on my face. Um, and then in the process, I found some brilliant people also who made me feel comfortable, who taught me a lot by just, being nice to me or just like understanding, ki, hey kid, I know you're on the path to something. Keep going. Just keep. And there were some who were like maybe racist, some were super hateful. So there were all these mixes, but those
Hmm.
one few people who like recognized at one point they were in my shoes, they were trying to open doors for themselves. That really left a mark on me. But rejection was, I didn't know at that time that, and like people told me that my boss at that time, even my parents at that time told me that doing this is going to train you for your future. I'm like, it feels like hell though. Like, I don't, like, why am I calling 90 people a day? I know it's going to go bad, but still I have to make it work. And I don't think like that kind of, you know, uh, parenting also exists now, where the parent is like, no, push through it for a little bit longer. They know their kid is struggling. They'll ask you to push little bit more. That's also important, I think. At some point, you need to push your child. Otherwise,
Yeah.
he's just gonna go with the current all the time, and that okay, he might lead a peaceful life. He might, I don't know what will happen, but you have to sometimes your child has to develop some muscle. He has to develop a spine, and that is not going to
Yeah.
come by going with the flow all the time. Like it's great to say follow the path of least resistance, but we don't live in one piece land. We don't live in a Zen garden. We live in a society that's built on profits, that's built on ruthlessness. So if you don't teach your child how to fight, he's gonna suffer a lot. Um,
Yes.
and
And what you said about rejection, sorry, when you mentioned rejection, I just wanted to add, I don't think a lot of people are really taught how to handle rejection.
Yeah,
They internalize it. So if they're not being taught how to develop that muscle and that rejection is a part of life, failure is a part of life, if they are being brought up by unconscious parents, which is like majority of the people, those boys then turn into incels, maybe trolling forums online, or just thinking really nasty thoughts about women or shooting schools. It could be it could go in any direction. And I think that's where that connection needs to be felt first, right? Whether it's like a father figure, community. But if boys don't have that outlet to feel vulnerable, to express that vulnerability, and to say, yes, it's completely normal to feel this way, but I believe in you. You can still push through, instead of just being like, are you stupid? Like just that
Or like
becomes,
asking them to give up.
yeah,
It's like, or asking them,
yeah.
yo, don't go hang out with those people if they make you feel that way. Don't, you can't go hang out with them because they make you feel that way. You can go find, sometimes just teach them to fight. Sometimes don't even entertain them. One of my best things my mom used to do is whenever I had these fights with children in my area or building, I used to come and complain to her, and she never stepped in except like 2-3 times when it got really out of hand. That's when she came and she set havoc in the kid's family's house. But usually she nudged me to fight. She told me, you have to take care of this. You have to go out, and later on I realized that takes a lot of trust, because from the get go my mom has been comfortable with me going at very long distances away from home alone as a child. That also doesn't exist anymore. Kids are not going that far away. In America, there are other
Mm.
concerns. They are mostly still okay and safe. A lot of shit goes down here too. But kids are not going far away from their home. Like, even during their playtime or whatever, there's just like everything is stunted. All growth has been
It's
stunted.
predictable.
Yeah, and it's safety measures have to be drawn, and everything is gated, everything is fenced. You can't see over the fence, you can't see to the other side. The world is closed up. So people are scared, I think. And yeah, I think it's nicer to live in communities where it's safe, where you can let your children play, explore, go out. Like, have you heard of this place in Mumbai called Pune? Pune has a lot of places where it's very open. You can, like, children can explore. But it's very important for that space. They need to be in a space where they can't see home, where the roads are new, where people are new, and they're completely disconnected from that visual of the I'm like 2 minutes away from home or 1 block away from home. I think that's very important. Like, yeah, speaking to you is making me realize that was a very important part. The rejections were important. The distance from home was important. The uncertainty of, like me never returning home on the same time, getting scolded by my mom every day for coming late. So all that was very important because I was fighting for my freedom. I always was fighting for
Right.
all of that. Like, if your child is so comfortable, then, like, I don't know.
That makes sense. But I think the emotional comfort is necessary, though, right? Because just kind of going back to that point of not everybody accepts rejection in the same way. Some, they may become extremely negative as a result of it and cause harm to people if they don't know how to channel it in the right way.
If a child has faced rejection, now who the child goes and talks to is very important, because how the person reacts will define this child's mentality and psychology in a very, very big way. So if a child has been rejected by a girl, and if the child goes to his unhealed father, who anyways has a terrible opinion about women, the father is going to fuel that fire. Tell him women are like this, they're always like this, that's how they function. If you just say women are like this, that child is fucked. In his head, he's gone. His brain has made a conclusion that, okay, I am hurt because women are like this. My father has told me, I have accepted. As opposed to me going to my mom and saying, this has happened. And she's saying, it's okay, this happens. People are different. People, like, it's okay. So that emotional maturity, that spiritual angle of understanding,
Mm-hmm.
finding a man in that position can be maybe difficult at my younger age. Now it's more and more common to find healed men. But now, no, like, I think people have gotten really good at the facade. The facade they have is of a emotional, understanding man, but from inside he's not figured it out. He's not aligned his emotions with actually how he feels about the world. I feel like the facade helps them to get by in the world, because most men and women make good facades that work. And you have to maintain the facade, right? That includes your fashion, that includes how you carry yourself, that includes the words you censor out from your mouth, that includes censoring out truths which you would normally say. Like, so many things that you can't like, yeah, so many things have become insensitive. You can't speak
Hmm.
about a lot of things. So the facade can keep changing, and the facade has it stands for a certain thing. Like if a person is censoring out these words from their speech, if they're acting like this, or then you'll naturally link them to, oh, he's open-minded, he's sensitive, he's a woke. The woke person, he must be very careful about him. But then you just look at him or her behind closed doors. They have That's not who they are. Probably
It's
just
a performance.
the performance that they're doing. And everybody needs to do this performance to some degree to exist in this society. We are not living a life where we don't need to work to pay our bills and all of those things. Some facade is important. You must have heard of this Japanese saying, or apparently a Japanese saying, that we have three masks: one we show to the world, one we show to our
Yes.
family and loved ones, and one we don't show anyone. So it's important because they thought of this because it's needed, right? The poker face
Yes.
exists because it's needed. You can't let everybody in on how you're feeling about certain things, because that will drain your energy. It will not give you the advantage that you need in that situation. And it is about all of this. Like there are these games that everyone needs to play. Now, who's gonna teach your child about this? You hardly can, I guess. Let him experience. Let him learn for himself. But yeah, the facade is important, but some people are so focused on the facade that inside they feel like the inside is not important.
Yes. Yes. And I think just going back to the connection, once you have that connection with somebody as a child, you feel comfortable in taking off your masks, and feeling comfortable to be seen, and not feeling like your value is only determined by the grade you get or whatever measure of success is there. It's to really be seen that I see you for who you are, and feeling that acceptance. I think just having that connection can give that child the strength to face rejection and to go through life in such a way. And I think that's what needs to be done with young boys and girls today, is to foster that kind of connection and allow them to remain who they are, accepting them for who they are, instead of trying to make them fit a mold, which is a mold that culture tells us who to be, education, people. And that really kills and erodes the soul more than anything. So sure, like maybe a lot of people can find their way in life like later on, which I have, it seems like you have, and many others do, but not everyone has that privilege. So it just seems like we need to really nurture these souls from an early age. Yeah, but I appreciate all of your time today, Gaurav. I would love to have you back on future episodes. There's so many other tangents that I want to touch on, and I will also share your website and your social media handle as well. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
It was a really good chat. I hope we do this again.
Thank you. Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you.